It's Wednesday, October 21. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Carol Francis. In our first report, we get the most current COVID-19 data from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
The island recorded 71 new COVID-19 cases over the last 24 hours, bringing the overall tally to 8,445. According to the Health and Wellness Ministry, 14 recoveries were also recorded, bringing the number of recovered cases to 4,016. The number of active cases now stands at 4,142. At this time, there are 22 moderately ill and 10 critically ill patients. 150 persons are currently hospitalized. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
Long-term care is available at 2 state-operated care facilities for seniors in need called the Golden Age Homes and 13 infirmaries via the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development. The COVID-19 pandemic has raised specific challenges for care home residents, their families, and the staff that look after them. This was brought to the fore when news broke on Tuesday evening that 43 of 72 samples taken from residents and the staff at the Golden Age Home in Kingston came back positive for COVID-19. More from Marlon Samuels.
Vulnerable elderly residents, some with long-term medical problems, living at the Golden Aged Home in Vineyard Town have tested positive for the coronavirus COVID-19. 43 of the 72 samples taken from residents and staff at the facility came back positive for COVID-19. The cluster of COVID-19 cases was discovered by the Health Ministry during its surveillance of senior citizens' homes and infirmaries. The positive results have put the care facility in a predicament. They need to offer care while minimizing the risk to other residents. There are standard operating procedures to care for residents with suspected and confirmed COVID-19 infection. They include infection control precautions to protect staff and residents. Other measures include confining residents to their rooms and restricting visitors. In Jamaica, 15 state facilities reportedly accommodate over 3,500 senior citizens. Over 90% are considered at high risk of infection from COVID-19. There is mounting concern about the likelihood of elderly residents who test positive surviving the infection. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Marlon Samuels.
The Blood Collection Center at the National Chest Hospital at 36 Barbican Road, Kingston 6, is back to full-time operation. Opening hours are from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., Monday to Friday, and on Saturdays 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The center's reopening provides an additional location in Kingston where persons who are eligible to donate blood can do so. The University Hospital of the West Indies and the National Blood Transfusion Center at 21 Slightpen Road, Kingston, are the two other blood collection centers in Kingston. The public is being reminded that in order to donate blood at any of the National Blood Transfusion Services collection centers, they must present a government-issued ID in the form of passport, driver's license, or national identification card. The blood bank and its collection centers are open for blood donations and welcome walk-in donations. Additionally, donors can make an appointment and pre-register online. To learn more, visit www.nbts.gov.jm. That's www.nbts.gov.jm or call 876-630-1984. That's 876-630-1984. A bill to amend the Rent Restriction Act is expected to be tabled in Parliament by the end of this fiscal year. Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, Pernell Charles Jr. says the third draft bill has been reviewed. Minister Charles says the amendment is a significant element of the government's thrust towards developing a robust housing policy while providing adequate housing solutions. We get more from Simone Absalom.
The creation of a viable rental industry serves as a significant transition and option for persons to access safe, legal, and affordable housing. That is a very important element of our housing policy, and it also is a critical feature of our Vision 2030, the National Development Plan for the country.
Housing Minister Pernell Charles Jr. He says in amending the Rent Restriction Act, the government is seeking to update and strengthen outdated provisions.
And to introduce new provisions that will allow for us to better manage the relationship between landlords and tenants and to create a very clear and cogent legal framework for the operation of the rental industry in Jamaica.
The Rent Restriction Act was first passed in 1944 and marked the birth of the Rent Assessment Board. Since then, there have been 11 amendments, the last being done 37 years ago in 1983.
So without a doubt, there is a very critical need for us to have updating and reform of that legislation for it to align with the current realities that we face in Jamaica. The amendments that are being proposed in the bill are very practical amendments that are going to deal with issues that landlords and tenants have had, which have been steady disputes, increases in disputes over the years. So many landlords have complained about arrears in rent, unpaid utility bills, damage to their property, the difficulty and the inordinate delay in trying to recover their own possession. Tenants have complained about harassment, landlords coming into their property without notice, the breach of quiet enjoyment, landlords trying to compel them to comply with illegal increases in rent.
Minister Charles Jr. says the issue of security deposits will be dealt with in the bill's amendment.
A contentious issue which is not now dealt with in the current Rent Restriction Act. This bill will provide certainty in the definition of a security deposit as well as the process to collect and apply a security deposit. How can you collect it? When do you collect it? And what are the issues that are to be considered in returning a security deposit?
For the news on PBCJ, I'm Simone Absalom.
Election Day workers are reportedly to start receiving payment on Wednesday. 67,000 Election Day workers were on the ground on September 3. The Electoral Office of Jamaica, EOJ, missed the October 15 deadline for payments to begin. Director of Elections Irvin Brown said there was closure of the accounts department due to possible exposure to COVID-19. Meanwhile, candidates' financial report for their September 3 general election campaigns will also be released on Wednesday. Jamaica Labour Party councillor for the Fellowship Division in Portland, Irvin Brown, is dead. Mr. Brown, who was 61 years old, was in the intensive care unit at the University Hospital of the West Indies, reportedly being treated for COVID-19. Mayor of Port Antonio, Paul Thompson, described the death of Mr. Brown as a major loss to the Portland Municipal Corporation and his family. The birthplace of late former Prime Minister Hugh Lawson Shearer in Marthabury, Trelawney, is to be declared a heritage site. Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport Olivia Grange made the announcement while speaking at the recent National Heritage Week Thanksgiving church service at the William Knibb Memorial Baptist Church in Falmouth, Trelawney.
Hugh Lawson Shearer, our third Prime Minister of Jamaica, who was born in Marthabury. And again, I'm very happy to announce that his birthplace will be declared a heritage site and his home restored.
Minister Grange also announced plans to honor a few of Jamaica's Olympic heroes.
We think of Veronica Campbell-Brown, our sprint queen, sprinters Michael Frater and Warren Ware. And very soon, Troy Primary will be renamed the Veronica Campbell-Brown Primary School. Of course, when we say Trelawney these days, we think immediately of Dr. the Honorable Usain Bolt, who hails from the quiet district of Sherwood Content, and who has placed Jamaica on the world stage in a way unlike any other. And it is my pleasure to say to you this morning that his statue is ready to be erected here in the town in December, before the end of this year.
Sculptures of Usain Bolt, Shelley Ann Fraser-Price, Veronica Campbell-Brown, and Asafa Powell have been erected in Statue Park at the National Stadium in Kingston. The prospect of a COVID-19 relief bill being passed in the United States has resulted in a slight gain in global oil prices. Gabriel Thompson gives us the details in the business report.
In Tuesday's trading session, the JSE combined index advanced by 333 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall, market activity resulted from trading in 112 stocks, of which 40 advanced, 32 declined, and 40 traded firm. The junior market index declined by 10 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 1834 Investments Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica, AMG Packaging and Paper Company, and Blue Power Group Limited. Trading firm were CAC 2000 9.5% preference shares, Sebony Group Limited, and Dolphin Cove Limited. Tropical Battery Company Limited was the volume leader with 3.9 million units, followed by Pulse Investments Limited with over 1 million units, and Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with under 800,000 units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Tuesday, October 20, ended trading at $146.04. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $111.98. The pound sterling traded for $190.21, and the euro ended trading at $175.38. Oil gained more than 1% on Tuesday on the prospect the United States was nearing a deal on coronavirus relief, but the threat to demand from rising COVID-19 cases worldwide and increased Libyan output kept prices from moving higher. Brent crude futures gained 54 cents to $41.46 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 63 cents to $40.68 a barrel. And that's it for this edition of the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabriel Thompson.
The World Health Organization recently highlighted various intervention methods that should be adopted by all to maintain a healthy mind. A growing concern is suicide rates in preteens and teens. Data shows that 42% of attempted suicides treated at hospitals are children. In this Living Healthy report, we'll learn about the warning signs of suicide, risk factors, signs, and what we can do to help.
Sadness, feelings of distress, changes in normal routine, refusal to socialize with friends and family. Those are some of the signs that someone could be struggling with depression and contemplating suicide. Mental health activist Jazz Thornton says she has tried several times to take her own life, but something changed.
I remember after my final attempt, I had a conversation that really just kind of sparked something in me. And it was with a woman, her name is Esther. She's known me for many years. And I remember her just looking at me and I was crying and she just said, "Az, why are you crying?" And I looked at her and said, "I'm just so tired of fighting." And she looked at me and went, "Jazz, what do you think the definition of fighting is? Because I don't know if you've been fighting. I think you're only surviving. And it's only when you learn how to fight, that's when the change that you're longing to see is going to happen." And I remember taking that and going, okay, hang on a second. If I've actually been surviving for all of these years and fighting's going to change something, I have to learn how to do that.
She says the bravest thing you can do is seek help.
Is that even though you might be struggling right now, it's really important to remember that this is just one scene of the movie of your life. It can get better, but it's really important that you reach out and ask for help, because this isn't something that you can do by yourself.
If you want to help, engage in intentional conversation.
How are you really doing? Like, how's your home life? How's your work life? How are you managing? I think taking that very simple fundamental of relationship, that question of how are you, and creating the space to actually engage in a conversation is a really good step, especially as a counselor, because you're trained to listen. But I think it's about really intentionally creating that space, whether it is, in the corridor or on the street when you see someone, rather than just the very brief interaction. How are you? Yeah, good, move on. Take the time.
Don't just say everything is going to be okay.
For someone who is feeling suicidal, saying that minimizes everything that the person is going through. I remember hating it every time someone knew that I was struggling with and would say, oh, it's going to be okay, because to me, I was like, actually, I don't want to be alive anymore, and you telling me that everything's going to be okay, it minimizes everything that I'm feeling. So what I found really helpful was when people were like, Jazz, I'm so sorry to hear that you are struggling with this, but here are some things that we can do. Let me call your doctor. Let me see if we can get you into counseling. But the other thing that people did is, when I was struggling with not wanting to be here anymore, the beliefs that I talked about earlier in this live about being a burden, feeling like I was unlovable, the people around me chose to constantly speak against those beliefs. So, every day, hey, Jazz, we love you. Hey, Jazz, we're proud of you. Hey, Jazz, remember that you're not a burden. And having that consistently really helped when I was feeling that way.
If you're experiencing any of the feelings just discussed, you are not alone. Call 888-NEW-LIFE. That's 888-639-5433. Or send an email at mymentalhealth101@gmail.com.
In regional news, according to its Ministry of Health, the Bahamas has recorded 150 new COVID-19 cases. With the country's healthcare system overwhelmed by the surge in COVID-19 cases, some patients at the Princess Margaret Hospital are being kept in the accident and emergency department for days due to insufficient space on hospital wards. Bethany McDermott reports.
Amid an increase in COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations, employees at Princess Margaret Hospital are reportedly being forced to treat patients in back rooms of the accident and emergency department and in food courts at the hospital. Patients are also reportedly being kept in A&E as there is no space on the wards. Before the onset of the pandemic, Director of the Infectious Diseases Program, Dr. Nikia Forbes, said areas in the hospital were outfitted to provide care for COVID-19. However, during the second and more vicious wave of the virus, she said they were forced to adjust.
We did have to adapt and get resourceful and place patients in isolation rooms in the emergency department, and in an area of the critical care block it was shut off. It's no longer the cafeteria, but it used to be the food court. We had to change that so that we could provide care there. It's no longer the cafeteria. That's exactly the situation that is going on there.
The Nassau Guardian has reported that 4 wards at PMH were closed due to exposure. While Forbes could not confirm this, she said the closure of wards posed a significant challenge.
There can be instances, and certainly there were instances in the not too remote past, where we have had to close wards so that we could get a handle on patients that presented with COVID that were asymptomatic, and we found out after they were admitted or they started to develop symptoms, and so therefore they were screened. So that is also a real challenge in COVID-19 as it relates to all hospitals and health facilities, and we're trying our best to mitigate against those challenges.
Health Minister Runwood Wells on Friday said the bed capacity at PMH is 70. Hospitalized cases have increased to 119, according to health officials, who say 76 of those patients are at PMH. 2 of those cases are in the intensive care unit.
As you can imagine, that's very difficult. Patients that have to be hospitalized, they need a certain level of support. That is putting pressure on the healthcare system and it is causing strain.
On Monday, the 30-bed field hospital provided by Samaritan's Purse became operational. According to Forbes, this should help in alleviating some of the strain on PMH.
There's a criteria for which patients could be in the facility there based upon how much oxygen can be delivered.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
The Royal St. Lucia Police Force is increasing its operational tempo in response to a recent uptick in gun-related homicides. The Commissioner of Police says no resources will be spared in the fight against criminals.
I first take the opportunity to extend sympathies to all who've lost their loved ones. It is rather sad and unfortunate that we've lost so many lives through violence. One death is too many. Fallis, 41.
In just 1 week, 3 men were injured in a hail of gunfire. One man, CV Zoomboy Sharma, subsequently executed, and days later, Ali Smallboy Jordan gunned down, all in the vicinity of Leslie Land. The upshot in gun violence prompted a wide-ranging media briefing by the top brass of the RSLPF on Tuesday. Commissioner of Police Severin Mosheri says the stakes are at an all-time high as law enforcement strategizes on arresting the spate of violent crime.
We will not surrender. We will not retreat. We will take the fight to those rogues and would-be criminals, using every bit of resources available to us. We have talked the talk. It is now time to walk the walk. It has gone to a point where even police officers are being threatened. There is no guarantee that in executing the new plans in place to reduce such violent crimes, that there may not be collateral damage.
Investigations continue into the Leslie Land homicides that, according to ASP Crime Management George Nicholas, have no immediate connection.
We have not been able to confirm that there is a link between the two, but however, we are not ruling out the possibility of there being a link.
Fear has gripped the small community of Leslie Land and environs. Deputy Commissioner of Police Milton Daisy says police presence has been beefed up to keep residents safe during the violent flare-up.
What we have done as a force, we have intensified our patrol there. We are going there at odd times. We are going there by night, by day, and we have a presence, SSU, in and around the area. Now, crime, there's opportunity, and once there's the opportunity to commit crime, persons will commit crime. We are looking out for the criminals are looking out for us. So, and as I've said before, we cannot have sufficient police officers to place in every community.
Law enforcement was not at liberty to divulge sources, methods, tactics, procedures, and strategies in order to maintain operational security. However, public assistance is being sought by Commissioner Mosheri.
I must say it is the responsibility of the police, to ensure the safety of every community and not just Leslie Land. What we also want is for members of the public to cooperate with the police in providing information that would lead to the arrest or to be able to detect some of those crimes. In some instances, we are faced with difficulties when we go out there to do our investigations.
Anyone with information regarding the recent homicides can call 45-CRIME or 452-7463. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
Caribbean education ministers have unanimously proposed that the Barbados-based Caribbean Examination Council commit to a total waiver of fees for reviews of the 2020 CSEC and CAPE exams. We have more in this report.
Several government education ministries around the region have noted the increase in numbers of students requesting a review for their CSEC and CAPE examinations. This prompted a statement from the Ministry of Education in Trinidad that Education Minister Dr. Nyan Gatsby-Dolly joined her counterparts from several countries including Jamaica, Barbados, Antigua and Guyana for discussions with Caribbean Examination Council Registrar Dr. Wayne Wesley on Monday, October 19th. According to the press release, discussions were submitted by the independent review team set up by CXC to review the queries of the CSEC 2020 examinations. The issue is the cost per review being US $15 per subject. Sunday, October 18th, Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley shared her thoughts on the CXC debacle that has adversely affected thousands of students throughout the region. Mottley made the announcement that Bajans don't beg during a political meeting. She said her government will foot the bill for the students who need the exams reviewed. Had she not made the offer, parents would be required to pay US $15 for each review.
What has happened to the children of the region is not right. I don't know what the report will say, but I do know this, that many of the children who are asking for a review, their parents cannot afford to pay the price for that review. And Santi, I know that you have asked for a waiver and we have not heard back an answer, but Bajans don't beg. And therefore, tomorrow, you will tell them that the government of Barbados will pay for the review of all the children who need a review in CXC.
COVID-19 has proven to be an extraordinary year for many sectors, and the student population has been directly affected by the closure of schools, changes in the format of exams, and the use of online learning platforms. The Ministry of Education here in St. Lucia released its analysis of the CXC and CAPE examinations on Wednesday, September 23rd. All exams were written under COVID-19 protocols. In the year 2020, 3 times the number of students wrote the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate than the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination. Regionally, 8,497 candidates, that being 3,439 males and 5,058 females, registered for CAPE Unit 1 and Unit 2 examinations this year, while 24,136 candidates, 13,364 females and 10,772 males sat CSCE in 34 subject areas in 2020. The study also stated that this was an increase of more than 2,500 students compared to 2019. Here in St. Lucia, 34 subjects were written by candidates from 24 secondary schools for both general and technical proficiency levels. This year's average pass mark on the island was 76.34%. Chelsea Austine, NBC Prime.
In sports, we begin with athletics. Former Kingston College athlete Ari Rogers has been hospitalized. He was involved in a car crash on Saturday in the United States. He is said to be in stable condition. Rogers crashed while driving at the Grambling State University in Louisiana. He had gained a full scholarship to the university after leaving Kingston College. Rogers currently holds the Jamaica High School record for the 2,000-meter steeplechase set at the 2018 Boys and Girls Athletics Championships. And over to cricket. The Cricket Writers Club has awarded this year's Peter Smith Award to Jason Holder and the West Indies men's team. The award recognizes outstanding contribution to the presentation of cricket to the public. We get the details in this Newsroom Guyana story.
Upon announcing the award, the Cricket Writers Club stated that Holder led a trailblazing tour party that flew into the unknown at the height of the COVID-19 crisis in the United Kingdom from the relative safety of the Caribbean. Writers Club said that as the first sport team to enter a bio bubble, the West Indies cricketers showed great forbearance, holed up in 2 hotels for 7 weeks, and were instrumental in rescuing the international summer for cricket lovers and the England and Wales Cricket Board. Writers Club also noted that Holder conducted himself with grace on and off the field, speaking eloquently on race and racism and the need for education and unity during a period of turbulence precipitated by the death of George Floyd in the U.S. Holder was understandably elated to accept the award virtually and spoke of what it means to West Indies cricket.
Hi guys, it's Jason Holder here. A massive thank you to Cricket Writers Club for offering us this wonderful award. We're very, very grateful to be acknowledged for it, and hopefully in years to come we can continue to make you guys happy and keep smiles on everyone's faces and fly that West Indian flag as high as we possibly can fly. Thank you once again, and we'll see you soon.
Led by Holder, West Indies won the opening test by 4 wickets, chasing down a target of 200 on the final day in Southampton. However, England rebounded in fine fashion to win the series, taking the next 2 test matches in Manchester. They won Game 2 quite comfortably by 113 runs and the final match by a massive 269-run margin. Despite the series' defeat, Holder's men received widespread praises for their bravery in deciding to embark on a tour in the midst of COVID-19 and spending several weeks in a bubble. Reporting for Newsroom, I'm Avinash Ramzan.
And that's our package. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place, for more news and sports right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.